So this is actually part 3 of my reaction to a video put out by a YouTuber by the name of Ryan Macbeth talking about his brief stay in Australia. So he visited Sydney, he visited the Gold Coast, and he does admit at the very beginning of his video that his views are based solely on those two cities that he visited, and he admits that that doesn't mean that he is actually talking about the whole of Australia. So he does admit that, which is a step up from so many other creators that I've covered recently. So kudos to him for that, definitely. Now, he has spoken about a lot of things that he experienced while he was in Australia and put his own interpretation on it. But it seems to me that he's put too much of an interpretation on it, perhaps, in that rather than just appreciating that Australia is very different, some of the things he's said to me have sounded a bit like trying to compare Australia to America and almost trying to show where Australia falls flat. And that could just be my interpretation. So apologies to Ryan if you ever watch this video, if you feel offended by me saying that. I know that a lot of his fans have watched my previous video and were quite offended by me standing up for whiskey in Australia, or for me pointing out that we actually have people of Asian descent from many, many different Asian countries, not just Hong Kong. And a few other things that I pointed out. Apparently his supporters were not so impressed with me over that, so apologies to any of them who may still be listening to my videos. But anyway, enough about that. So he has put forward some of his views about things to do with Australia, and now we're nearly at the end of the video. So let's see what else he has to say.
What else do I want to talk about here? Submarines. So I thought this was pretty weird. It seems like, at least the Australians that I talked to, but even like Australians who are working at like restaurants and stuff, when they heard my accent, they asked if I was Canadian, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, they want to start off, I guess no American gets offended if you ask them if they're Canadian, but if you're Canadian, you get really offended if someone asks you if you're American.
Yeah, sorry about that one. That's a bit like Americans who can't tell the difference between Australian and New Zealand accents. And to be honest, there are times when I listen to someone with a New Zealand accent, and until you get to those swallowed vowels, you find yourself sitting there thinking, are they a Kiwi or are they an Australian? I mean, for us in Australia, there are so many different accents in America that you can understand why we might struggle to tell the difference between a New Jersey accent and a Canadian accent.
They asked if I was Canadian. No, I'm American. And it seemed like they want to talk about submarines, which was not something I would think a waiter would talk about, right? Like, oh, what do you think about the submarine deal? Like, I really don't have that much of an opinion on the submarine deal. I think it's probably a good idea. But I found it interesting that people here in Australia, even down to like waiters and the concierge at the hotel, followed international politics and the threat from China to the point where when they see an American, they want to talk about the submarine deals.
Now, I find that particularly surprising, and I'm wondering if this guy is the sort of person who maybe has two conversations about something and then over-exaggerates and comes across as and says, well, I spoke to so many people who were so interested in this topic when maybe two people have discussed the topic. Or did he say to them something about his background? Because apparently he has some sort of military background. So then they asked him about the submarine deals. Because I just cannot picture this. Yeah, we realise that we have a bit of a tosser for a Prime Minister who, if he keeps going the way he's going, is going to get us into deep crap internationally because of some of his stupid decisions. So, yeah, we are a little bit nervous about events that are happening outside of Australia that could impact on us because of policies by our idiot leader. So, yeah, I can understand that maybe there are people who are concerned, and if he mentions that he has defence connections or whatever, that may bring it up. But I think he's over-exaggerating here.
So for those of you who don't know, America and the UK are going to sell like 6 submarines to Australia. And Australia is going to be a major partner if deterrence fails. The sirens here are weird. I don't know if you can hear that or not. The sirens here are a lot different than Washington, D.C. So, yeah, it seems like everyone kind of knows that if deterrence fails and China actually invades Taiwan, Australia is going to be a major component in kicking the Chinese out of Taiwan. And everyone here seems very aware of that, probably because they are so close to the action, right? In America, it's kind of easy to be distant from that, but when China's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from your own country, you take them a lot more seriously. So I thought that was pretty interesting that so many people here were aware of the Chinese threat.
All I can think is that perhaps there was some media coverage to do with it all within a day or two of him speaking to these people. Because, well, for starters, we tend to forget about stuff like that pretty quickly here in Australia. If we can't control it, we do have that she'll be right attitude, and we worry about it when it happens. Because I just can't picture these multiple conversations about Australia and China relations just coming randomly out of the blue just because he's American. I'd like to know what other people think about this, though.
So, yeah, I can tell you this. If you're an American and you want to come to Australia, I mean, yeah, the smoking laws aren't great.
If you saw the video I did yesterday, he was complaining about not being able to smoke inside, and about the looks people were giving him for smoking a cigar out in public, etc. And now he's talking about how the smoking laws aren't great, as possibly being a deterrent for people coming to Australia, which I think his cigars are almost like a security blanket for him. Perhaps he is just so used to having one in hand that it's just really rattled him being in a country where we're far from tolerant of someone walking down the street smoking a cigar.
But I think it's certainly worth it. It's worth it to do. If you get a chance to do it. You know, man, there's more fire trucks coming. Something must be going on here. You can see that back there. Oh, yeah. We're in the city. DC is like this too.
Okay, Sydney-siders, let me know, is that as commonplace as what he believes it is? Or is it just that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and there just happened to be quite a few emergency vehicles going through?
It's kind of a cool design on the back side of the fire truck. Here's another one. Right back there. And I think if you're an American and if you always thought about coming here, you should give it a shot. Like I said, if you're a cigar smoker, it might be kind of tough to find a place to sit and relax and have a cigar.
Okay, so as a non-smoker, I'm not fully versed on all this, but my observation is, well, we know that it's now illegal to smoke within, I think it's like 6 metres of an entrance to a building. So him talking about having trouble finding somewhere to smoke, sit and relax and have a cigar, it's about finding an outdoors place that's away from any entrances to buildings. And, if you look around, you will see spots that have become designated smoking areas where you have that little gaggle of smokers all standing around choking down that one cigarette before they have to go off somewhere else. And yes, sit in a park. Just don't sit right on the path if you can avoid it, because people don't like walking through cigarette smoke or cigar smoke. And in fact, I think people would be more appreciative of you finding a spot where you can sit down a little bit out of the way to enjoy your cigar, rather than walking down the street with it. Maybe that's just how things are done in America, but in Australia, people aren't so happy about someone walking down the street with a cigar, blowing cigar smoke in their face. So just a little tip for perhaps next time this guy comes to Australia, or for anyone who is planning on going to Australia and wants to be able to have their cigar.
But the people are friendly. The food is basically what you can get in America, and it's good.
Come on, seriously. We have a lot of different foods here that you're not going to find in America. I know a lot of Americans who come here comment on the huge range of different types of Asian foods that are available. But not only that, it's about the Australian foods. Meat pies, just for one. So I think trying to say that the food is the same as the food in America, I think perhaps he's eaten at restaurants, and in which case possibly what is on the menu is very similar to what you are going to get in America, a steak or chicken or seafood or whatever. But if you are a bit adventurous and you have a look around, you will see that there is so much cuisine available in Australia that is not so readily available in America.
And there's a lot of interesting things to see here. A lot of interesting things to do that you're not going to get a chance to do anyplace else. I guess just because Australia, since it was its own continent, it kind of grew its own wildlife or fauna or flora or one of those things. I'm not a freaking botanist or animalologist or whatever. Oh no, as it turns out, that wasn't a church service. It's no to the equality bill. I don't know what the equality bill is, but usually equality sounds like a good thing, right?
He nailed it in one, really. Equality is a good thing. And I personally don't like when I see people doing campaigns like that, because it is showing hatred towards a particular minority. And maybe I will offend a few people by saying that, because I know there are some people with very traditional views. But to me, I'm definitely 100% for equality within Australian society. Isn't that what Australia is meant to be about?
Well, that's the other interesting thing about Australia. Apparently, you have to vote here. If you don't vote, you have to, I guess you pay a tax if you don't vote.
Well, actually, you pay a fine if you don't vote. Now, as someone with ADHD, I have experience of this. And the plus side is that they will send you a letter requesting an explanation of why you didn't vote, so that if you can give a reasonable explanation of why you didn't vote, then you won't cop a fine. Theoretically.
And that's, in America are voting like maybe 25%, 30% of people vote in elections, depending on whether it's a presidential election or not. That was kind of interesting.
Wow, maybe 25% or 30%. That's insane. For me, living in a country where voting is compulsory, I just find it really odd that there is a country where it's not compulsory to vote. And especially when, as someone looking on from Australia, Americans are so very, very passionate about politics. And yet only 25 to 30% of them are voting. So does that mean that all this rhetoric that is coming out at the moment with regards to the upcoming American election is actually only from 25 to 30% of the American population, and the rest of them just don't give an ass? Or are they just very, very vocal about politics, but when it comes down to actually making a difference and actually having a vote, they just don't care? It just seems, it's ironic to me.
Talking with people here who do vote. So that's pretty much it. I am going to try to head to Bunnings Warehouse to have a sausage sizzle. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're in Australia, hey, I had a good time in your country. I really enjoyed it here, and I would definitely come back if work brought me back here.
Okay, I like that he wants to go and have a Bunnings sausage. That's kind of cute. I'm glad that he enjoyed his time here in Australia, but I find it interesting that he said he'd definitely come back here if work brought him back here. So does this guy not take holidays, or is he saying that he'd come back here if he was paid to come back here, but he wouldn't choose to come here for a holiday? Because here's my challenge to you, Ryan, if you ever listen to this. Come and check out more of Australia, because you are a very, very intelligent man and very perceptive, and you have kind of ballsed up a bit with some of your assessments of things in Australia, I will say that. But at the same time, I think you could actually learn a lot by travelling more of Australia and looking at parts of Australia that are outside of Sydney and the Gold Coast. And you might actually learn a little bit more about what Australia is truly like. And I say this in a positive way. So anyway, thanks for listening to this video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Help me to grow my channel. Please hit the like button and also leave a comment below.